Hey everybody, Damien Leone here, writer, director, special makeup effects artist on Terrifier 2. I leave for Fantastic Fest in Austin for the US premiere of Terrifier 2 early tomorrow morning. So I'm very anxious right now. There's a few ways to approach commentary. Some directors like to talk about amusing anecdotes that happen throughout the course of filming. Others like to talk about all the technical aspects of filmmaking. I'll try and do a bit of both and try and talk about some of the subtext going on since I wrote the screenplay. I remember filming this. It was very cold, very rainy, setting up the atmosphere right now. It is the year prior, and Art has been resurrected, and here he comes, his silhouette. Beautiful lighting by George Stuber, the director of photography, and my co-producer. And here's Corey Duvall back as the coroner. Now we get to see what transpired after Art rose from the dead and grabbed his throat. And you can see chaos ensuing and all kinds of supernatural happenings going on. And Art's looking very vicious here. I remember Jason Levy back there with a leaf blower, making all those papers fly. And now Art goes right up to the mirror there, and he's checking out his face, and he's looking at his eyeball. He thinks he looks very pretty, and he's sort of just embracing the fact that he's been resurrected. There's the bullet wound, the exit wound in the back of his head. And of course, in typical Art the Clown fashion, he likes to tag his name in blood or other bodily fluids, as you know. Corey Duvall supplying some very nauseating gurgles. And this is actually how people know or refer to him as Art the Clown, because as you may remember, his shit in part one was cleaned off of the bathroom walls. So since this is taking place on the same night, the authorities would have come in and seen his name written in blood. This was interesting. This was we had to go back and we got thrown out of that location, and now every time you see Art right here, that is a set, a little set that we had to come in and build. That little background right there. Um, yeah, months apart. Boom, fake head, blood spraying out. Originally, I wanted to do an appliance on Corey's head, but it wasn't working, so we built a dummy with a blood pump in it. I wanted to start off the movie with a bang and a really brutal kill scene, just to let the audience know what they're going to be in for. If we're going to do this at the start, imagine what you're going to see in a little bit. And he just pulls this guy's eye right out of his head. I was thinking of wacky things, sadistic things Art can do to this man. His being a jokester. I said, well, since he's missing an eye, maybe he pops the guy's eye out and sticks it into his own socket. And sort of, it's ridiculous. I wrote as a looks at him like a demented Popeye in the script. But it's all about the way he mocks these people as he's killing them. Here we had Steve Delasala, my other producer, and I believe Jay Bird, Jason Levy, driving the cop cars going by. They played the cops at the end of Terrifier 1. That was nasty. He pulls his skull right open, pops his brain out. Originally, we had him toss the brain across the room and slam it into the mirror that he wrote his name on. But since it was a fake wall that we built, and the whole wall shook, and nobody realized it until we got into the editing room, so we couldn't use it. There we were repeating the cars going by, so it looked like we had more cop cars than we actually did. Okay, this is one of my favorite scenes. I remember writing this or coming up with this idea when I was delivering flowers, driving around, wondering how am I going to get Art the Clown back into a clean costume? Because I love in movies when a character goes through some sort of physical metamorphosis, whether it just be their costume or internally, there has to be a shift. And I love when it's physical. For instance, I love RoboCop is a prime example. When you see him as RoboCop, revealed in the beginning, he looks like this amazing robotic knight in shining armor, and he's so pristine. He looks like he's just come off the assembly line. And by the time you see him at the end, he's completely devastated, and he's been riddled with bullets and oil, and there's no more sheen to him. And you can tell what that character has been through just by looking at him. So I love having Art start clean and then gradually get bloodier and bloodier as he goes. More supernatural activity, so something has forced its way into our world. Here we go, the introduction of the little pale girl, the entity, the apparition, the embodiment of evil that has resurrected Art the Clown. And this, for the first time, Art is sort of a little taken aback. And I figured this was right here. She secretes this fluid, this chunky, black, bloody, red goo. And I said, how does this creature introduce herself? How does she say hello? And of course, that's a little homage to The Exorcist, but also she's like an animal, and she's kind of happy to see him. She's excited, so I thought she should emit some disgusting fluid. And now you have these two evil, sadistic, demonic characters that neither one speak, so how do they communicate? And they're very childlike, so I figured they would just play patty cake or do something very, very childlike. They don't need to speak. It's all there. Yeah, Tommy Smith, this guy's amazing. He's a producer. And now we're setting up the rules. We're setting up the fact that only Art the Clown can see the little pale girl right now. Other people can't. Only, as we'll learn, only certain people can see the pale girl besides Art the Clown. Yep, he uses the hanger. I've wondered how the hell, because I always have to zip Dave up. And I said, well, how the hell is Art going to zip himself up? And then I thought, maybe he needs a little more length. Maybe he can use a hanger to zip up his costume. And of course, he has to clean up his mess, only to reveal that he's made an even bigger mess, and he's slammed the broom handle through this guy's head. And there it is. But yeah, going back to the laundromat, I just said, how are we going to get him clean? Does he get a new costume? Are there multiple costumes? Can he just walk into a store? And then I just said, no, he'll just walk into a laundromat, just the way he walked into the pizzeria, without a care in the world, and he'll strip down to his bare ass. And I knew that Dave would be comfortable being naked because of the scene in part 1 with the cat lady. And now we're introduced to Sienna, played by Lauren Levera, the impeccable, incomparable, super talented Lauren Levera. There was never a runner-up for this role. This is my favorite role, my favorite character that I ever wrote, and I've never had somebody care more for a character that I wrote than Lauren did for Sienna. She was just absolutely in love with this character. We both were, and we worked so hard in fleshing her out and making her a very relatable, interesting hero. And now we're setting up a lot in this montage. I love opening credit sequences. So we're seeing that she's a cosplayer and she's an artist. And of course, her name is Sienna. Being an artist, I named her after Bob Ross, and always talking about burnt sienna. And figured her father was an artist, so that's why he named her Sienna. And we see she's building a costume. She's building a Valkyrie costume or some sort of angelic warrior character, all handcrafted. But you're really getting to know a lot about Sienna's character based on this montage with no dialogue, just by the color of her room, the music she listens to, all of these posters on her wall, the fantasy elements dressing the room. There's a lot of information to take in. The song playing here is The Equalizer by The Midnight. The Midnight's one of my favorite modern bands. I can't believe we got this song in the movie. I was so excited. I wanted Sienna to be a fan of synthwave because there's something ethereal about that sound. And now we're also introducing the sword. The sword will come into play big time as this film progresses, and establishing that Sienna did in fact blow out all of the candles. That will come into play as well. And now we're introducing her mother, Barbara, played by Sarah Voigt, who's one of my favorite characters and one of my favorite performances in this movie. Really setting up that this character is busy, preoccupied, juggling many things. She's cooking, she's working, she's stressed. I mean, this is a stressed character who's easily irritated, and yeah, I remember always. See, I don't like to, and thankfully I never have to micromanage my actors when it comes to performance. I believe in casting the best actor for the part and then stepping away and letting them do their thing. And Sarah, the only time I would have to push her was when I wanted her to be angrier and more intense, and she was always a little hesitant to go there, but she trusted me and she would, and I love when she really goes there. She's sort of lightly based on my own mother. They have very similar personalities. Strong, single, hardworking mothers. Here we have Elliot Fulham, who plays Jonathan, Sienna's younger brother. Very difficult role to cast. It's very hard to find a child who's willing to be that sort of vulnerable and commit to so much physical action, and just a really, really good actor. Elliot had so much charisma, and he just so happened to be a fan of the original Terrifier, which was icing on the cake, but he did such a great job. I love this location. I just love the way this kitchen looks. It looks very vintage. Again, amazing lighting here by George. I love that blue coming through. Boom. All right, the cereal. Cereal's going to play a big part here. It's going to work its way into Sienna's subconscious, and that's going to come back and play quite a part in her journey. And Sienna here she's very sort of worried about her brother and curious as to why he's so fascinated by serial killers. And as we'll learn here, he's particularly obsessed with Art the Clown, and he wants to know. There's Jenna Cannell and Catherine Corcoran reprising their roles from part one, the now deceased Tara and Dawn. So he's looking up articles, and people are theorizing as to who Art the Clown could be because he's missing. His body disappeared from the morgue, and there's no information about him. And now this is important too. So we see that Jonathan has this sketchbook, but we don't know yet how important that sketchbook is, and that it happens to be his father's sketchbook that also has all of these articles in them pertaining to Art the Clown, which is what triggered Jonathan's obsession. There it is, and that's where you see. That's how we know he's become Art the Clown. That's where he got his moniker. Police sketch that I did myself because I didn't feel like hiring anybody, and I'm decent at sketching. This is some foreshadowing here when Barbara talks about her going fishing with her dad and cutting off the heads. That goes to show that there is a dark side within Sienna, and that she has the ability, or she has the capability to be sort of savage. Even though she was a child, she could do some dark things, and that's gonna come back when she decapitates Art at the end. Now back in her room. This song is called Constellation by Kyle, and I found this on YouTube, another synthwave song that I absolutely fell in love with. and I just love setting up the atmosphere in Sienna's world and the kind of music she listens to. I love the way her room is lit. Her room was built in a barn in the middle of farmland, Amish country, upstate New York. This is a giant tin can. It was ice cold in here. And the reason why we built this set was we had to set the room on fire. And I also wanted to be able to move that back wall almost like you would see on a sitcom, so I can put long lenses on the camera and get these really pretty shots looking into her room. And we didn't have to feel so crammed. This is where Jonathan comes in and tells Sienna that he's sort of frightened. He's obsessed with art, but he's also very leery, and he fears that he's going to come back. And now he picks up the sword, and she says, "Be careful, it's still razor sharp." More just foreshadowing, setting up that sword's going to come back in a big way. And we also learn that here that the father was an artist, and Sienna's sort of following in his footsteps. And here Sienna sort of consoles Jonathan a little bit and tries to put his mind at ease that there's nothing to worry about. Art's not going to come back. I've had this conversation with my older sister a long time ago. I remember on the news there was a serial killer, and I was so terrified that he was going to come to our house. Sienna is based on my two sisters. There's a little, I drew from very personal experiences and relationships in my life to flesh out these characters. And Sienna is very much sort of maternal, like my oldest sister. And my younger sister would be the one to dress up like that Valkyrie and go out on Halloween. Whenever you see the kind of snarky side of Sienna, things like that, I would say that that's my younger sister. They're both older, but the younger one. Okay, so now Sienna is watching television. All these images are going to play a part now in her subconscious and where she's going to wind up right now. Tommy Nunn. That was a cool cartoon we had made for this film. Now she sees the Clown Cafe, some children's show on TV, as she's slipping away. Now we have one of my favorite scenes in the movie. This was the biggest scene in the movie that we anticipated that we had to film, because there were a lot of extras. A lot of all those people online right there are Indiegogo extras. Wonderful, wonderful people. Huge fans who wanted to be a part of the film. And since we set this whole place on fire and there's all kinds of special effects, we had to be on our A game, and we had to be like a well-oiled machine because they were all paramedics and police officers and whatnot. So we had to make sure we were in and out of there, and couldn't waste any time. And there you see this happy mural of Art the Clown holding hands with children, Ring Around the Rosie. And here's Faye and Francesco, Killian. Those are my crew members, Allegra. And now Lauren wakes up Sienna in this dream, quote unquote dream, and she's dressed as one of these kids in the show. I wanted her hair to sort of defy gravity, and I remember having my wonderful production designer, costume designer, Olga, and my amazing makeup assistant, well, hair and makeup, Jackie, trying to figure out how to get her hair to go up that high with metal wires and things like that. And there's Leah, the host, actually singing the song, beautiful voice. There's Gloria. I've known her for so long, and she's been cut out of so many of my movies. Just nothing to do with her. It's just the way it's gone. And I was like, I'm going to get you in a movie. I have this part as this nun, and she is amazing. So I finally got her in a movie. Here we have David Howard Thornton, Mr. Art the Clown himself, doing this voiceover because who better than the man of 1,000 voices? And since I always take his voice away, I said, hey, you want to do this little voiceover for the serial? Big shout out to my buddy Scott Clausen for being the bug wrangler, amongst many other things. But whenever you see worms, maggots, I mean, he's the guy. Have to give a huge shout out to the Kaplan brothers who wrote the Clown Cafe song. Everybody who sees this movie says I can't get that fucking song out of my head. It is an earworm, and I have to agree. As soon as I heard this song, they wrote this song in about 2 days, and all I said to give them some sort of reference was it's a children's show and there's a bunch of people on the line of a food truck. And that was it. These guys are so talented. They were off to the races, and they came back with the Clown Cafe jingle. That's gonna be one of the most memorable parts of this movie. Now we have Art coming out on his bike. Everybody's so happy to see him, except Sienna, who is absolutely horrified. Now, here's the misconception, and here's where I don't like necessarily articulating everything that's going on that isn't spelled out to a T. But a lot of people think this is just merely a dream sequence, and it's not. It's way more crucial, pivotal to Sienna's journey. This is actually a divine test that manifests itself within Sienna's subconscious, within a dream. It's sort of all going on at once. But the forces of good that are wanting to appoint Sienna or anoint her as the chosen one, so to speak, to combat Art, she has to be tested first. If she doesn't approach this in the right way, and if she's not courageous at the end and doesn't decide to fight back against Art, then she will not be the one. So once she decides to fight and crawl for that cereal box and stick her hand into the box of horrors with all the razor blades and glass and insects, it's just sort of a nightmare upon a nightmare. But if she cowers, it's over. But Sienna is as strong as they come, and she doesn't know just how powerful and how strong she is. Oh, that box, we had to keep changing, figuring out what the hell is in that box. There were so many different ideas. We settled on a beating heart that starts filling up with this black liquid and bugs, and Art sort of giving her his heart like he gave Tara the ring in part 1. But virtually nothing in this sequence is arbitrary. Even the people online, if you notice, they all have luggage, and there's a pilot and a stewardess. That's all a reflection of Sienna's wings and her going on a metaphysical journey, some transcendence. But and then here comes the Tommy gun and this mass shooting, inspired by the show that the cartoon that Sienna was watching. And he's just mowing everybody down, all the Indiegogo people. Oh boy, yeah. Guns and Art the Clown are some of the most polarizing elements in these. I'm assuming it will be as polarizing in Terrifier 2, but I haven't really gotten feedback yet. But I love Art with a gun. And I just thought he's black and white. He kind of I could picture him holding an old school gangsta Tommy gun. So I said, I like that image. I want to give him a Tommy gun. And again, just guns are always so relevant in our culture, and they're terrifying. So it was definitely a way to wipe out all of these people. And now he's got. This was cool. That was an oil can. I had him in the script. It was a flamethrower or some sort of makeshift flamethrower. And Phil Falcone and I, my partner, we found this oil can. I said that looks cool, and the stuntman transformed it into a little flamethrower. This Phil, he says I cut him out of the movie. He's in there. And Art's just lighting everybody up. And Sienna's, Yeah, yeah. It's getting intense. This is the moment where she's shot now, and she is terrified, but something is driving her. Something is calling to her, and she remembers special prizes in the box. What prize? Get the prize, Sienna. Come on, your destiny is in that box. Oh, little Wesley, this kid was amazing, and he's also one of the stars of Stream, Mike Levy's Stream. Very talented kid. He's got a great career ahead of him. And now Art sees Sienna messing around over there. And you can see, I always wanted this to be more intense. I was hoping we could get more blood coming out of her hands, making it look like maybe a finger was hanging off. Just really sell the fact that there is a lot of nasty stuff going on in that box. And it's the last thing you want to do is stick your hand in it. But she keeps fighting because it's what she's meant to do. And now she's got some. She's got her prize. And what could it be? I would assume at this point, most people aren't assuming that she's going to pull the sword out of the box. There it is. Boom. Bang. Okay. So now this, when she decides to fight and the fire hits the sword, that is the moment where the sword officially becomes baptized. It breaks into reality, and the sword is literally on fire. And now that's when it becomes official. It's another thing. I mean, listen, we had a lot of limitations. I wanted to show something really cool where the sword is sort of absorbing the fire, but we ran out of time and we couldn't do these things. And I didn't want to go so over the top with the visual effects. And there's Barbara coming to the rescue. Puts out the fire. I love this scene. I love the performances in this scene. And this was based on an actual argument. Or not an argument. My mother chewed me out one night. This really happened because it was a school night. Everybody was asleep. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was melting sulfur-based clay on my stove for some sort of special effect. And you're not supposed to melt sulfur-based clay. As soon as you melt it, it burns. All of this smoke comes out. It smells awful because it's sulfur. And I filled the entire house up with toxic smoke. And my mother came storming out of her bedroom and just screamed at me and said, "You're going to fucking kill us one day." So this is all. You write what you know. But see, it was important though, as much as Barbara's always on edge and always seems like she's angry and yelling, she has to do something nice, and she says, you sleep in my room, and she'll sleep on the couch. And she cares. She loves these kids so much, but you don't know as the audience what she's going through, what they're all going through yet. How traumatic their past is. And poor Sienna. She worked so hard on those wings, and they're gone. See, this is the first sort of reveal that something is up with the sword supernaturally, where it was just on fire and there isn't a blemish on it. Here, when she starts swiping across the sword, it's very subtle. It's hard to see, but right here you could see some sort of light follow her fingers, and then little bits of crystallization in the blade. But I didn't want to go over the top with that. I didn't want it to be so obvious to the audience or Sienna. This is another testament to George, Steve, Jason, the grips, everybody who lit this scene. This is actually in the middle of the night probably, and we lit this to look like early morning. I love their performance here. And now Sienna's starting to get very skeptical and weirded out, and she'll start questioning her sanity more and more as this movie goes along. Another cool thing is you see the shirt that Lauren's wearing is black and white, and the color schemes and the clothing, it was very specific when Olga and I picked them out and went through everything. And we knew right away when she presented me with what clothes Sienna could potentially be wearing. When we saw this black and white shirt, we knew that she probably shouldn't be wearing it because it's Art's colors. But then we both said, hey, it's great that he's sort of working his way into her subconscious. And I just liked the shirt, so we went with it. And I love that idea. And now we're back in Art's lair, and the little pale girl is watching television, and now you realize that this is the scene from Terrifier 1, where Art's watching the TV, except nobody can see the pale girl. So she was there the whole time. And he's making one of his new weapons. I always loved spike clubs, and I feel like movies never do them justice. They can do so much damage, and I wanted to show what a spike club would really do to somebody. It's actually a table leg. Little Amelie McLean, who plays the pale girl, she is just so good, so good. And she was a trooper. She had to get her eyes fitted for those contact lenses because they cover her entire eye. And she was only like 9 or 10 years old when we filmed this, I think. I wanted to do little things with the pale girl, little subtle things like I didn't want to put her in a prosthetic. Oh, and there's my Samantha Scafidi. I love her so much, and I always have to. She's always so ugly in these movies, and she hates me because of it, because she's so beautiful in real life. And I told her I'll get her face in it again somehow, somewhere. And Katie McGuire as Monica Brown. But yeah, so I wanted to do subtle things with the pale girl and give her long hair on her arms. And her teeth are actually switched, so her uppers are on the bottom and vice versa. Little things like that. Funny story about the pale girl, she was not supposed to be, as Possum Pete, she was not supposed to be dressed as a mini Art the Clown originally. I envisioned her to be sort of this little girl from the 60s in a yellow sundress with flowers on it, maybe like a flower behind her ear in her hair or something like that. And then the year before we started shooting, so Halloween of 2017, I remember being on Instagram and getting tagged by tons of fans, men and women, doing their own Art the Clown cosplay. And I remember seeing all these female cosplays as Art the Clown. And I said, I have to jump on that before it's too late. It's too good. So I radically changed the design and made her a female Art the Clown. But if you could see her, I didn't want it to be the exact costume as Art, and she's also a mirror image of Art, so where he's black, she's white. Oh, and there's our favorite, Felissa Rose, who, what's going on? That is her catchphrase for the movie. She was so good. And Griffin, you might know him from Cobra Kai, before Cobra Kai really started taking off. And Owen is the other actor, and these kids were great. This was a fun day, actually. I had a lot of fun shooting this. It was nice to be outside. Felissa brought so much great energy to the set that day. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. Yeah, I wish she had a bigger part, but she came in and did her thing. This was another one. I like how, and that's Devin, the little girl, Devin. She was excellent. It gives him that look, you bastard. This was important to show that he's not a bad kid, Jonathan. He's just, he's a little disturbed, but he didn't want to do that to her. The other boys did, and he genuinely feels bad. He's got a big heart. I like this shot. I always tried to just keep moving the camera in this one as much as I could. And here she comes, skipping along. Little pale girl with Possum Pete. We filmed this in Monsignor Farrell High School in Staten Island, which is where the Fuzz Boys went to school, and they got us in there. And we had to sort of tiptoe around the fact that we were doing this. Just pulling the innards out of a dead possum and just desecrating these halls. This was the first day that Amelie worked with Dave, and it was so fun to see them working off one another, especially Amelie working off of Dave, because she was trying to feel out the character. Of course, I would tell her what to do with her face and how to act and how to be all giddy and stuff like that. But she would mimic what Dave was doing, and Dave would like coax her through it and make faces and gestures for her. And you can tell in some spots, you can notice she's mimicking him. It was so cool to watch. The two of them look great together. Stacy is the principal. A lot of just mean, angry adults in this movie. That's how I remember school. Mean people. I hated school. Absolutely hated it. And now he's going to get blamed for that. Sienna's still trying to wrap her head around everything that's happening. Casey, the MVP of this movie, Casey Hartnett. This was hysterical. This was Casey's first day. It was her biggest dialogue day, and nobody told me that when she was going to show up, she wasn't going to have a voice. She had laryngitis. So everything here is ADR'd, which is a director's worst nightmare because it is almost impossible to pull off naturally. Meaning Casey had to come back probably 6 months later and sync up all her dialogue again in a studio. But she did a great job. And Jason Milstein, oh my God, he did so much on this, but he was our boom operator and did a lot of audio post work, and he helped us pull off the ADR. And here comes Kaylee, who is one of the most charismatic, natural actors I ever worked with in my life. I would say out of all the actors in the film, I gave her the least amount of direction. She just knew who this character was, and she took it and ran every take. She was on fire. Like, absolutely on fire. Everybody was just in love with her and so impressed by her. So good. She's so into it. She's so fun. She has such a different personality than these two girls. That was important when I was writing this. I didn't want them to feel like the same character. And now Sienna hears about Monica Brown and Victoria Hayes, and she's just really on edge. And we're really establishing Sienna's anxiety, which is a huge part of this and a huge part of what her sort of personal hell winds up being at the end when she's thrown into the grave or the hell portal. Yeah, she suffers a lot, and she has trouble breathing, and she panics and severe panic attacks. But she's trying to wrap her head around the clown cafe and the sword. And we start to learn that, we learn officially toward the end that her father committed suicide, and he was losing his mind and having these visions, and he was also very abusive. See, this is something that I did not spell out in the movie. There's a reason why, and listen, I'm not comparing myself to David Lynch by any stretch of the imagination, but there's a reason why David Lynch does not like to talk about and articulate his movies, especially when he's doing something so abstract as Twin Peaks or something like that, because then the mystique is gone, the allure is gone once you know exactly what it is. It's so much better when you approach it like a nightmare, like a dream, and you can put your own interpretation on it, bring your own experiences to it, and things like that. I'm not saying that's what I did here, but again, I did not spell out what's going on with the father, but I will tell you, the father was sort of a vessel for that supernatural good that needs to get to Sienna. And he was the one who started getting the visions. He, not understanding why necessarily or what's happening, but he knew he had to get the sword for Sienna. He knew that she was meant for something important. And because of that, he was also channeling the bad force that was coming in, the evil entity that was going to be the counterpart to that good. It was all starting to come through, and that's why he was becoming abusive, and all of this going on inside of him manifested itself into a physical tumor that eventually made him go crazy and kill himself. He was the vessel. It was all channeling through him, and he was supplying Sienna with what she needed to go forward on her journey. It was an essential sacrifice on his part, which is another classic biblical mythic theme. And this is Abracadabra in the city, in Manhattan, New York City. Look at this place, production value. We couldn't even capture all of the wonderful stuff in this place. It's too big. Dave is fantastic here. I love this. He comes in, just bumps into her, smiles, and tips the hat. He knows, I'll see you later. I'll see you later. I'm sorry. I wish I could pause this, and it's too fast. There's too much going by, too fast. There's too much I want to say. It's like I want to talk about what's going on when we shot. I want to talk about what I wrote. Too much. My God, these wonderful performances, the beautiful lighting. So much going on. This is a cool shot. So this whole scene is basically my, I guess you'd call it my own homage to my own work. This is the sort of new pizzeria scene from Terrifier 1. Because that's my favorite scene in part 1, believe it or not. I love when Art is able to interact with people in public. That's one of the cool things about Art that separates him from the other slashers, is that he's not immediately threatening. And because it's Halloween and he's not just there holding a bloody axe or a butcher knife, you could accept that it's just a guy dressed as a clown being a jerk or just fucking with people. So I love to get as much tension and suspense out of that situation as possible. Now, poor Sienna, she's so rattled, she doesn't even realize she has the wings on. Jonathan, he was amazing. Jonathan Davis, this poor guy. We shot his kill scene one way, and I was not happy with it whatsoever because we didn't have time to build the effects and shoot this scene. And by the time we got to the effects, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. We only had 2 hours to shoot, and they did not come out good. So we had to go back to the drawing board and really revamp his decapitation. This is a cool moment. This was a continuity error. Her bag was not supposed to be left downstairs, and I said, fuck, she needs that to go buy candy in the next scene. And Dave said, I could bring it up. I didn't come up yet. And I said, fucking A, man, that is perfect, and I will turn that into a jump scare. And it's so much better than it would have been. So little moments like that. And there they are, the now famous Art the Clown sunglasses. Unbelievable. They're in the movie for not even a cup of coffee, and someone already got a fucking tattoo of them. Unbelievable. That's how amazing our fans are. It's just incredible. It's so surreal. This scene was so fun. This is also my homage right here to Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which is one of my favorite movies, and him just messing around in the magic shop. See, so people always wonder how much improvisation goes into a scene like this. How much is Dave bringing to it? What are you bringing to it? I'll give you a perfect example of how a scene like this works. So in the script, I would write, Sienna's at the counter. Art goes over to the rack of sunglasses. Every time Sienna turns around, Art has a different pair of wacky glasses on, and he's frozen like a mannequin. So I had that, and I had the noisemaker, and I had the horn. But I didn't know what the wacky glasses were, and I knew I would just bring a box of glasses and props and put them all over the place and just have Dave go to town. And there is so much footage of Dave trying on all different kinds of glasses, Groucho Marx ones, 80s glasses, playing with whoopee cushions, you name it. And then when I get to the editing room, I pick my favorite glasses or my favorite gags. And that's how a lot of these scenes work. And see, poor Sienna, she's so fucking terrified. This is a big deal. I mean, this is the first time, downstairs she sees Art in person. He was just in her nightmare, or that divine test, and now he's in her reality, and she's desperately hoping that it's really not him, but deep down she knows. She knows it's really him. And Art's MO is mess with her, break her. He loves to break his victims. It's all about the foreplay before it gets down to the violence. But not even that. He can't kill Sienna. He can't kill her here. It is essential that he gets her to the Terrifier, and he has to get her into the grave, or what it's really called. I call it the Hell Portal. Her soul needs to be locked away in there. That's the only way to stop her. This was a fun scene. I loved shooting this. These are the moments where Dave really shines, where he gets to have a lot of fun. With the change, the bloody change, and I said, count the change. I said, take your time and do it as if you're like an old lady getting on the bus, and just everybody's waiting for her to put the change in. And he knew exactly what I was talking about, and he nailed it. And originally when I wrote this, I believe Art was just setting up all of these different knives on the table, and then he quickly started stabbing the guy like all over the place or something like that. But that quickly changed. And also, like I said before, originally this was supposed to be a decapitation, but done with a bone saw that he took from the morgue. And it just didn't work. And it was just a no-brainer to do it with the cleaver. I mean, he sets it up on. It's such a wonderful setup that he puts it on the counter, and I didn't even use it. Luckily, that was nasty. I wanted the bottle just really sunken in. That was another one. I mean, we didn't have time to do all these effects. These are all inserts that we had to go back months later. So all that graphic violence. I mean, even this, when you see Jonathan on the floor here, we had to go back probably a year later, and that's not even in the same location. We went to the barn where Sienna's bedroom is, and we built this little set. So this kill scene is a real fake head. I mean, it's a dummy head, but it's not all visual effects. So we had a replica of Jonathan's head that Phil and we spent a week building that head as anatomically correct from the inside out as possible, with so many layers of fat and bone and probably 10 blood tubes going in the neck and through the head. So even the side right in here, like even the head would bleed from the neck, not just the neck out. And those wires ran up Art's arm. And then we digitally put Jonathan's face onto that head, which was a technique that I used a few times in this movie, because you can't get any more realistic than the actor's real head actually twitching and reacting to those cleaver hits. Originally, I wanted that to all be in one take. I wanted to see the head get hacked off. There's Tamara Glynn from Halloween 5. She came in to play this mom, and I had this gag in my head. I said I wanted Art to be in the window uh, look like they look through the window and he's just pretending to be a mannequin. He's just holding the head. He just loves to keep fucking with people. But yeah, Josh Petrino is our visual effects artist, and he did such an incredible job. It was so difficult for him to map Jonathan's real face onto that fake head. And we tried so hard, but we couldn't. We couldn't do it all in one take, unfortunately. So I had to cut it up. But I figured that was something you'd never seen before. Was a decapitation like that so slow in one take, and see the actual actor reacting to it and dying as it's happening. But it still looks fucking gruesome as hell. And now this is where Sienna realizes that her brother has had the father's sketchbook this entire time, and it was special, and then Sienna was looking for it, and they thought it was gone forever, but Jonathan's had it because he found the articles. And there you can see that's clearly, or maybe not clearly, but that is Amelie, who plays the little pale girl. So you see that she was an actual person, but you don't know what her role was yet before she became the pale girl. And look, even Art the Clown, the father drew Art. And again, these were just visions he had. He didn't know what these were. He didn't know these were the victims from Terrifier 1. This was just, he was just getting these images from the beyond. And here he also got this image of Sienna donning the Valkyrie costume and holding up Satan's severed head, which of course is going to play into Art's demise at the end of this movie. And Jonathan says he gave you that sword before he died. There's something going on with that sword. Now, again, like I said, I mean, the sword is just a great mythic weapon, clearly. If you're dealing with angels and demons, why not have it be a sword? It's you don't get any more classic than that. But it's not that, like I said, it's not that the sword is just this magical sword. The sword had no power whatsoever. It wasn't until Sienna decided to fight in the dream that it became supernatural. And only supernatural in the sense that it can now kill Art. It doesn't have any other magic powers other than, you. Of course, you do at the end see it heal Sienna's stomach, but that's just because Sienna can't be killed by her own weapon. Kudos to Justin Fulham for getting us permission to use all of these band album covers and posters, and Daniela Fulham for all this beautiful artwork to dress this room. See, this is. I love the dynamic between these three characters because Sienna is just as maternal, if not more so, in the past year or so than Barbara. Um, she's more of. She provides more comfort to Jonathan, and he confides in her a lot more. And I think that's really beautiful. I love their relationship. I love this scene. I think it's so genuine. Um, and he pleads with her to stay home, don't go out. He knows something terrible is going to happen, but she's still in denial. She's still in a bit of denial. She does not want to accept her role yet. This can't be real. Can't be real. Another. I love the lighting here. There's definitely a huge HMI or something out there. Another one, I'm sure. Same as the morning. This was probably the middle of the night. It definitely was. Definitely was. But George killed it. And it's all about Sienna's internal struggle. I mean, she doesn't want to, but she believes him. She knows something is up. Something is up. She saw Art in the store. She felt it. She felt it was really him. Man, Sarah was so good. She was so good. Every scene Sarah was in, and I edited it, I just said, I feel confident in these scenes. Here we go. This is actually George's house. And now we did that little transition. Sienna opens the door, and then we cut to Casey, or Allie, as her character is. And now we established this van. I wish we had more shots of Art driving the van, but he did get his hands on a van that just so happened to be black and white. Uh, and now we see that the pale girl is guiding Art to Sienna's friends. I mean, taking out everybody that she cares about. This was a fun scene. I love, again, and this is the first time, by the way, that you actually see Art in daylight, which I thought was cool because he's always inside, or if he's out, it's nighttime. And another one of those situations where he's not immediately threatening. It's Halloween. It's just a guy being an asshole. So the audience knows that this isn't going to end well. Just give him the candy. Not like it's going to matter, but it's going to make him even more pissed off at her. He's probably going to do one extra awful thing to her because of it. This was when you see her open the door for a split second. I mean, it was nighttime here, so George lit this beautifully. It looks like it's all taking place in the day, but boom, that was just a giant light outside. This, obviously, it was. When we're doing the reverse, it's daytime, but there's so many illusions going on. And it was so cold and windy this day. I was always worried about the audio. It was so windy. And that was an insert that we got months later in Phil's driveway. See, Allie is the skeptic, and Allie's trying to, especially when they were in the convenience store earlier, Allie's trying to rationalize everything. Can't be the guy. Everybody's going to be dressed as Art the Clown. And now she saw this guy walking around. He's got all these weapons in his bag, and there's just something really off about this. All those posters. All right, so huge props to, again, Olga, for really designing and building that room. Her and Jackie pretty much filled that room and built it. Put all the props and everything just the night before we shot it for the first time. So it was just bare walls, but they went in there. They put up all the wallpaper. I think my only visual contribution to the room was the colors and that crazy black wallpaper with the metallic leaves. When I originally sketched out the room, I just wanted it to look like that. But all the beautiful details and the furniture and the trinkets, it's all Olga fleshing out Sienna's character. Those little details really make the character. Clearly has such a love for fantasy and things like Dungeons and Dragons, fairies, and stuff like that. So her room is filled with things like that. Marissa played the news anchor. She was fantastic, and now the TV is speaking to Sienna. And now she's really questioning her sanity. So now you see there's some insane supernatural things working its way into her reality. So the evil presence is really making itself known. Here's another example of shooting night for day. It was not that shot. That's an insert. But right now it is in the middle of the night, and George made it look like it was daytime. This is important, all this symbolism. I mean, it's obvious, but I keep showing shots of the dragon, which is classic mythic, strength, and it's all about slaying the dragon, but also becoming the dragon. I mean, she becomes as fierce. She becomes a fierce beast by the end of this journey. and she sees that was just coincidental. That was actually images of Lauren as a child, and she loved wings, and she had these costumes, fairy costumes and whatnot. And she said, I have these pictures. And I said, oh my God, that's just, it's like, it's always been there. It's always been there in this movie for Sienna's character. It was always setting itself up for her destiny. There we go. We had to, this is this montage I've had in my head with this character since about 2008. This is not just, hey, this is like an exploitation. Let's put Lauren in the shower. This scene, this is the moment where Sienna accepts her fate and she puts on the costume, but what she's really doing is suiting up for battle. She's putting on her armor. And it was important that we show a sort of a baptism and a cleansing and a shedding of one identity into another. And you see all her bare flesh, and she's so pure right now, but she's never going to look like that again by the end of this movie. I mean, her body is filleted. So she is, when we meet Sienna again, she is going to be battle scarred. And again, I love, yeah, just this song is On the Run. I love that song. I couldn't wait to make a montage and cut it to that song. Jesus, that costume. I could do a whole commentary just on that costume. Before we get into that, her just going back and just showing the sword again. Ending on the sword with a little sort of heavenly glow on it. It's almost like the trick that they use with the tank in Jaws. I mean, that's just a screenwriting technique that I use. It's just you keep reminding the audience that this thing is going to come back. It's going to serve a purpose. But the best thing you can do is misdirect the audience. The audience knows, oh, it's obvious that sword is going to come in at the end. But if you go off the path that the audience believes you're going to take, that's cool. So we'll get to that later, but again, it was important to just keep injecting the sword, but not over the top. And now we get into the big kill that we knew going in was going to at least, or hope that it was going to rival the hacksaw scene, which all the fans just loved the hacksaw scene, and that's all they talk about. And how are you going to top the hacksaw scene? So this was it. That room, of course, her room is a set because I knew I was going to cover it in so much blood on the rug and the walls that we would never be able to do that in somebody's house. This is a happy accident. So that glass, the window, broke as it was being transported over. Originally, she was supposed to come down, and Art was supposed to be just sort of like trying to get in, and then he's not even looking at her, and he just breaks through the glass. But now that it broke, I said, well, clearly he's already in the house. So I had an idea when I was going to do this when he was killing her in the room, and he goes down to get the bleach, that he just stops for a glass of water, because I love when Art does these sort of mundane things, these ordinary things, seeing him drink, seeing him go to the bathroom, seeing him get naked and do his laundry. So I said, he just comes in and gets a drink. He knows he's got her. It's so horrifying that he basically puts her in a state of shock. And now this is where Casey just brought an A game that I only could have dreamed she would have brought. This took 5 days to shoot. 5 days to shoot this sequence, because all of these little effects, all of these little pieces, they took some of them took a whole day. Like right here, just this fake scalp on her that he rips off took a whole day, and now this is a separate makeup when she hits the bed, and all these inserts. This was all built by Phil and my amazing partner, who I call him the unsung hero of Terrifier, but I will sing his praises for the rest of my life. But he was by my side, and we built all of these body parts and this back, and coming up with really cool things and ways to make that back bleed while it's being cut open without using blood pumps and things like that. And his daughter, Lisa Marie, we used a lot of her body parts for these. for these props. And as you can see, Art just goes to town. I mean, this is just relentless and awful, just awful. I'd seen an image in a book about Jack the Ripper, and it showed one of his victims, her remains on a bed, and she was so horribly mutilated that you couldn't even tell it was a person. And it's really disturbing and grotesque. But putting myself in the mindset of Art the Clown and what we are to expect in these movies, I said, well, let's reverse engineer that, and that'll be the big kill. We'll show how that person ended up in that state. That's one of my favorite effects that I pulled off in this movie. Was there's no CGI. She's not. We didn't erase her arm digitally. Casey is just really hiding her arm behind her back very uncomfortably, like pulling it back as far as she can. And I painted it black, so if it did poke through, it wouldn't be too noticeable. And I glued this foam stump to her. And you know, there were many takes. There was a lot of times where her real arm showed, and we had to do it again. But man, it looked pretty real to me. I think that was very effective. But oh my God, Casey, I told her that I'm going to build her a trophy, just an MVP. I'm going to call it the Every Right to Complain Award, because, again, we shot that in a freezing cold barn in the middle of winter. I think it was December when we shot that. No heat, of course. We had to bring space heaters, but still, you can only have the space heater going in between takes, and it's cold and miserable, and she's pretty much naked and covered in blood, and she would get stuck to the rug because it was so sticky. Just unbelievable. She put herself in some zen state where she just never complained once. Never complained. And I just truly admire, respect her, thank her for that. And it's a very memorable scene. People that I know have seen the movie, they clearly know that that's the scene to sort of rival the hacksaw scene. Oh my God, this costume was such a nightmare. I don't even feel like talking about it. You have no idea how hard this costume was to build. We hired someone to come in and build it. They were going to build 2 costumes, and the clock was ticking and ticking away. Months were going by, and the costume was never getting finished, and it was taking longer and longer. And before you know it, it was time to shoot. And we only had one costume that was halfway done, and it was made out of some sort of PVC that was great if Sienna was just walking around or going to the club, but she was not going to be able to fight or do anything physical in that costume. So we were panicked, and we lost the person who was building the costume, and all of a sudden we had to scramble, and Phil and I had to do some research, and we figured out sort of a good material sort of a rubber, a very firm rubber, that they'd use to maybe make a Batman costume or something that we can duplicate the costume in, that Sienna could wear for the climax. And this is the Jack the Ripper. I mean, this was the money shot for me. I wanted the audience to believe that that's a dummy. Clearly, that's a dummy. It's a corpse. It can't be Allie anymore. And then all of a sudden have it wake up. And I'd never built anything like that before. I don't do animatronics, but I knew I could make it move like a puppet. So it's a rod puppet. So we have people underneath the bed with sticks and behind the bed through the false wall operating her from the back. And there's some tubing in her chest that's making her chest breathe, and all kinds of little things like that. The head that says mom is just like a classic, just like little spring activated jaw to make it say mom. And then what we did was we digitally put Casey's eyeball onto the dummy. Josh Petrino tracked it on and made it work, and it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Not everything that you write comes out the way you hope. In fact, most things don't. But that I was very pleased with that. That took a long time for Phil and I to build. That was unbelievable, overwhelming. This is George, the DP. I would say this is where he really shines. He started doing music videos. He still does a lot of music videos, and all those videos they take place in clubs. And he's got this look down to a T, and this stuff is just gorgeous. Another see that those two guys, you see them back there, those cloaked figures, they actually were Indiegogo fans and they showed up on their own dressed as characters, demons from All Hallows Eve. So that is a inadvertent homage to my first short film, The Ninth Circle. And this is really where this is really where Kaylee comes in and gets to establish herself and really shine. I mean, for a character to come in at like the 1 hour 10 mark and just knock it out of the park like she does is incredible. And Jeff, another one, just establishing these two characters so late in the movie, you really have to give them likable personalities, and you need really good actors to do that. These two were just oozing chemistry together. I loved watching them. It was some of the few times where you kind of forget you're watching a movie and you just love seeing them do their thing. And of course, if you saw that little quick homage to the original Halloween, he comes dressed as Michael Myers in The Sheet with Bob's glasses on, because Halloween is obviously one of my favorite movies of all time. So much blatant homage to Halloween and John Carpenter. He's one of my biggest heroes. I love this scene. I think all three of them just play so well off of each other. And they're just so much more aggressive and outgoing and extroverted, and Sienna still feels sort of like a fish out of water here. Let's Dance. We lucked out with the music. That was Power Man 5000 playing. Spider One, who's I've gotten to know him, and he's a talented filmmaker and musician, and he was gracious enough to let us use that song. That song is excellent. Yeah, I mean, this club, it looks like it's jumping, but you shoot it with long lenses and you cram everybody together, and it looks like it's packed with hundreds of people. There's nobody in that club, probably like 20 people. Oh man, I remember this night was fucking brutal. But there it is. I had that image. I can't believe, I'm sure someone's done this somewhere, but I've never seen it. And I said, he's got to turn somebody's skull into a Halloween candy bowl. I thought that would be another great reveal for what happened to Allie's mother. The last you see of her, she's screaming. By the way, played by Amy. To come in and play Allie's mother and knock it out of the park, like, she had to be so intense, and see her daughter in that state and break down. And her angle was shot months later, Amy, when she came in and screamed her lungs off. And it was just me and George basically in the room filming her. I don't even think we had a crew. And she just fucking killed it. She was so good. Amy Russ. Yeah. Sorry, there's so much information just bombarding me. I'm so overwhelming watching this movie. I also haven't watched this movie in a while. And I've never articulated anything about it. Like, half the things I'm saying right now, I've never even told my cast and crew. All this sort of the subtext of all the mythological stuff, I've never articulated any of that. So there's going to be a lot of surprises, I think, when people watch this. They're like, that's what you were going for? Love this scene. Great performances here. And I love how sort of tender Barbara is. Like I said before, she's comes across as sort of a bitch, but she always wants to make peace, and she always feels sorry. And she's saying, you fucked up. How could she believe that he didn't do that? I would probably believe he did it too. And but she said, come hang out, watch movies with me. And now you hear for the first time that the father was sick, and get this awful thing out of my house. There's nothing but bad memories in it. Now, here we go. The real smack. Elliot took it like a champ. His father, Justin, was adamant about allowing Sarah to really smack him. And so you see him get hit, and he looks at her. That's a genuine reaction. Genuine reaction. Also, if I can go back to Sienna's costume, if you see the Terrifier 2 poster, the first one that came out, where it's just in Sam Hain did it. It's a total digital drawing. I basically designed that costume. I knew in that photo, I knew what she wanted, what she was supposed to look like, or what I wanted her to look like. Her armor with the spikes and the wings, and just. But when it came to build the actual costume, we made more subtle changes. We added a lot more detail. We incorporated the brown into it. So me, Olga, Jackie, and Phil, basically, we all put our little touches into it. But where I have to give total credit to Olga and Jackie, I'm sorry if it was just one or the other, if not both. But they were the ones who brought it to my attention, or Olga told me, we can do other things other than this costume. We can make her hair, give her a Valkyrie. Not Valkyrie, I'm sorry. I'm getting sidetracked because here's my buddy Rick, who is the now famous selfie guy. Fuck yeah, girl. Good for you, brother. I'm so happy you're a part of this. But I'm sorry, not Valkyrie. She said, we can give her this Viking look, and we can put her hair in braids, and we could even give her war paint. And I said, that's fucking amazing. That's such a great idea. And then I sketched out the war paint. I like doing things in threes, so we had a couple of different variations, but I settled on the 3 lines going down her face. And I like asymmetry in my designs, which is ironic because Art's basically all symmetrical other than his top hat. But I like giving Sienna the one spiked shoulder pad, and one side of her face has the war paint. Sarah's breakdown there was so amazing. I remember her being off in the corner, just trying to get into some mindset, and all of a sudden I see tears streaming down her face, and I had chills watching that. It was so awesome. And here we go. That's my old car that is finally demolished. She comes in, and now she believes that Jonathan did this. And this is setting up from earlier on, just setting up that it's hard for them to believe everything he says. So she's convinced that he vandalized now the car, and he did call his mother a bitch in the room. And she is just going to lose her mind. I love this stuff. This was another idea I've had for the Sienna character for so long, that it was so important that her character be at her utmost euphoric state before I put her into the pits of hell, literally. So I had Brooke slip her some Molly to induce euphoria, because she wants her to have a good time. And Sienna's been so down and so anxiety ridden that I love both of their performances here. Lauren is so good. This is where where Sienna gets so vulnerable, and you start to learn how important the costume is, and more so how important her father was. And it's really just keeping her father's memory alive, and saying that he used to draw the character for her, and he used to, as a little girl, and he used to tell her that she was going to grow up to be like her. And Sienna has all this self-doubt, not knowing that she is that character. She is that powerful warrior. It's just yet to make itself known. It's gonna emerge more organically in time, but it's important for the character to have that self-doubt. It's more rewarding when they discover it later. And these are all classic hero's journey, Joseph Campbell motifs. They're all sprinkled throughout this entire movie, especially in regards to Sienna. She hits almost every hero's journey mark. But yeah, I mean, Kaylee as Brooke was just so good here. Look at how, Jesus, her little nuances, both of them, the little idiosyncrasies, the things they do with their heads and their eyes. It's like you can't take your eyes off of them. So natural, so natural. But that's a great technique. it goes back to The Godfather. I mean, it goes back earlier than that, but a great example is The Godfather. Coppola starts off that movie at a wedding, and you see all of these characters at their happiest before he throws them all into deep tragedy and despair. And it's so powerful. It's more powerful when you go back and watch it, when you know the fate of these characters. And I call it the God's eye view, when you know what's going to happen to them before they know what's going to happen to them. So that's what I'm saying. Like when you go back and you watch Sienna suiting up and she's putting on that costume, she doesn't necessarily know that she's suiting up for battle. Somewhere inside of her subconscious she does, but we know she is. She's suiting up to go to fucking war with Art the Clown tonight, and she's a force to be reckoned with. He's fucked, right? He's out there having a great time. He's thinking he's unstoppable, thinking he's got the world by the balls, and he doesn't know that this fucking force of nature, this Old Testament angel, is coming to stop him. So he's got just as much of a rude awakening coming. Now, that scene prior, that actually was not Amelie McLean playing the little pale girl. That was this little girl named Bea, who was her stand-in and wore a resin mask, a life mask of Amelie. And that was actually Elliot's last day of filming. And that was in the middle of the summer. It was so hot. And we had to wet the street with buckets of water to match the rain that we had established earlier on in the film. I love this performance. I love it. Both of them were so good. I love Sienna just laughing at her mother. It's like, now, well, this is something when I told you the sister who would wear that costume out for Halloween, this is something she would do. This is very much her. She would be the one on Molly. She would be the one laughing at my mother while she's having a meltdown. Sarah was so good. And you got to understand, obviously they're not talking to one another. This is shot separately, probably years apart, because this movie took almost 3 years to make. And I believe Phil was reading the lines with Sarah, and it's just like, when I'm shooting it, it's like Sarah's so good, but I can't wait to hear Sienna cut in there with her. And then that's one of those great things when you finally edit it and you see the two of them. It really feels like they're both talking to one another. And here, finally, Sienna tells her mother that she loves her, and there's been so much sort of friction between the two of them, and Barbara needed to hear that so much. And the whole family, they love each other so much. And Barbara is not, she's a great mother, but they're all dealing with so much tragedy that it's really fucked with them, and it's really damaged their relationships. And the sad thing is that, of course, that's the last time Sienna's ever gonna talk to her mother. I remember filming this at about 8 o'clock in the morning. Sun was up, traffic going by right behind the door. Not a soul in the club. As Brooke just wants her to ride it out. Come on, we got the whole night ahead of us. It's going to be great. No more talking to your mother. She's got that right. And here we go. This is... I was just at a convention with Tom Savini, who is my hero. If you've heard me talking in interviews and things like that, he got me started with special makeup effects. He's the guy responsible for Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Creepshow, Friday the 13th, Maniac. So I told him, I said, hey, there's a blatant homage, a couple of them, to Maniac in Terrifier 2, and I can't wait to show him. And this is clearly, there is an infamous shotgun blast in Maniac, but it's not done the same way. It is from the outside in. This time I had the killer on the inside out. And I thought that was a great reveal that Art was in the car the entire time. And now Sienna's mother was just taken from her, just ripped from her, unbeknownst to her. And I thought this would be a great time for the pale girl to make her presence known to Sienna. This is where the movie shifts. The stakes have been raised big time. The song playing in the background is called Pain by Boy Harsher, and I discovered this by accident. Olga had sent me a song on YouTube, and I just let the playlist go on autoplay, and about 4 songs later, this song came on, and I knew I had to get it in the movie. This was, I like doing this with the bodies crossing. This was sort of, when I wrote this scene, I said I'm going to shoot it like the scene in Jaws, where Chief Brody sees the Kittner boy eaten, but he sees all the people on the beach keep crossing the camera, and the angle shifts as they pass. And the pale girl just keeps appearing and disappearing everywhere until it grabs her. So we're establishing rules here more and more. So now we know that Jonathan and Sienna, because they are part of this puzzle, obviously, but the pale girl could even touch Sienna. So the pale girl is in some sort of middle dimension in regards to these two. And we're not quite sure what laws of physics can or can't be obeyed by that character. And I thought this was the worst thing imaginable. He comes home and he sees his mother, and this is another one. I see, ever since part 1, ever since I put Art in the cat lady skin suit, so to speak, I love putting him in costumes if I can switch him up and it's not too ridiculous. So I said, if he's going to do this and he's going to come out and serve food, I want to put him in an apron. We found one with cats on it that I liked. This was ridiculous. And he just slams. I'm just doing the worst thing. Just when you think it can't get any worse, it gets more sadistic, and he slams the mashed potatoes into his mother's dead face. I love this too. She's just laughing and listening to him scream. She's loving it, the pale girl. All right, so this is important because this plays into Art's demise. Jonathan plays a big part because he knows more about the sword. He believes more, has more faith in the ability of that sword than Sienna does. And he leads Art to the sword. And if he didn't, Art would have never brought the sword to the Terrifier. I just remember telling the both of them they had to bring up the intensity big time in this scene. And demonstrating at the door, I played Art, and just to show the intensity that I wanted when Dave had to be reaching in to grab Elliot. And man, I had a huge bruise on my bicep for weeks because of that. I love how much joy she exudes just listening to Jonathan scream. This is where Art's hubris, so to speak, leads to his own demise. Because he's not even thinking that could potentially be, I mean, how would he know? But that would potentially be devastating to him. But he just says, ooh, he's so cocky, he says, oh, I'm going to kill Sienna with her own sword. Another just great performance. Kaylee's just on fire, and I love how distraught and vulnerable Lauren is here. I love how she says, just take me home, and she's crying. It's so sincere. She gave you every aspect of this character you could possibly imagine. And also, I like showing different dynamics, and this is the first time you're seeing these characters pissed at each other, as opposed to being friendly the entire time. Just showing different layers, different sides, how they react in situations like this, makes them more three-dimensional. Just take me home. So good. They're so good. All right, so now more. This reveal was fun. So it was just how are they gonna lure Sienna to the Terrifier? And the pale girl can speak. She could probably do a lot of things. This evil apparition, this evil force, and she mimics Jonathan's voice and lures Sienna to the Terrifier. Amelie was so good. This was I she obviously all she had to do was make the clown faces and do all that kind of silent mime stuff that Dave does, but and then we'd been doing that for however long, and then when she had to do that scene and she had to actually speak the words, she was so good delivering the dialogue that I was actually mad I had to replace it with Elliot's voice. I wished I could leave her voice in there. It was so good. Very talented actress. She's another one. Great career ahead of her. All of these actors are amazing. Just next level. I was so lucked out. So lucked out. Kudos to my buddy Jason Levy. He casted this with me. We looked at all these people. He did all the organizing with the Actors Access and all those websites, and then we'd sift through everything. This was the first shot of the movie. Big crane shot. And we had so few lights, and we had to pick our spots strategically. We wanted to light up the Ferris wheel. And it's at this point where Sienna is about to enter the belly of the whale, or the belly of the beast, which is a classic hero's journey stage. This is the point of no return. Yeah, I mean all these scenes were, none of them are in the same place. They're all in different places at different times, and it was just a matter of making them blend together seamlessly. I don't know if we pulled it off all the time, but from that shot to this shot, that's, you're talking months apart. Yeah, this was also day one. We lucked out a lot with rain. Almost every time we did an exterior, we got rain, so we were able to establish that look, that wet look where lights reflect off of the rain. You could see too here, this was the first night of shooting with Lauren's costume. The back of her skirt wasn't even finished, so we had to flip the skirt around for that shot. And if you notice, there's no sheen to her costume because we didn't even think to give it a coat of crystal clear or whatever to make it really glossy. Big shout out to Alana Rose, who came in and painted some props for me, helped me mold people's body parts, but she painted the Sienna costumes and did an absolutely phenomenal job. And this is where Brooke gives the audience more exposition on Sienna's father, and you find out he committed suicide and he was abusive. Even Charlie, who plays Jeff, he's kind of this goofball, he's wacky in the club, but now that he's being very real now, it's important that he's also very grounded in reality, and he's showing genuine concern for Sienna right now. And Sienna and Art, they are counterparts. They're on the same journey on opposite sides of the spectrum. It's two different roads leading to the same endpoint. Um, Art he's got a leg up at this point because he's already supernatural. He's jumped right into it. He's already gone through his own resurrection. So he's already a supreme evil, but they're not on the same page right now, and he's being guided by his forces in his way, the embodiment of the pale girl, and Sienna's being driven her way through what her father left her, through her brother. I mean, Jonathan plays a big part. It's just two different trajectories, but she's not on his level yet, and she can't vanquish him. She can't do it yet. She can only do it if all of the pieces of the puzzle line up. And he also can't kill her yet until she's in the right place. She has to be lured to the Terrifier. It's not going to be easy for either one of them. The pale girl here is not played by Amelie McLean. She had already gone home, and so we brought in a double. Her name's Georgia, and man, she was really good, having only come in one day. She picked up the pale girl / Art the Clown shtick really well. Now, again, this movie doesn't establish why Art was resurrected, or if he and the Pale Girl necessarily have a grander mission to accomplish. For all we know, they just may be two demons reveling in murder, mayhem, and depravity. But what we do know is that they need to vanquish Sienna in order to continue doing what they need to do. The Pale Girl, whatever that evil entity is, it knows that you can't have bad without the good. So it knows that a counterpart is going to spring up and they have to stop it. And they know it's Sienna. Oh, they were so great in this scene. The two of them together is just so funny, so natural. The reason why I wrote this cocaine scene in the movie, we didn't even get to capitalize on it. So originally, Art was going to kill Jeff. Brooke was going to jump out of the car. Art was going to get in the car, see all the cocaine, rip a line, rub it on his teeth, smile, slam the door, and then just slam on the gas and just chase Brooke through the entire carnival. We did not have the resources or the budget to do that. And there you go. There's the reveal. Will Terrifier ever play a part in the franchise? The word Terrifier. And when I came up with that word for my short film Terrifier, I said, I want this movie to feel like a roller coaster. A horror-based roller coaster that you get on and it just takes off and it never stops. And just the name Terrifier came to me. And so I was, when I was writing the script for Terrifier 2, I knew it took place in this haunted house at the end, this fun house. And I said, I need a name for it. It was just a no-brainer. I said, finally, we'll get it in. But not only will Terrifier be just sort of an arbitrary name of this funhouse, but it will play a crucial role. It will be the structure that's built upon the Hell Portal. Charlie is so fucking funny here. I have to go pee-pee. We were just crying on set. That line was so ridiculous that that's all him, totally improvised, and I had to leave it in. And Brooke says, ew, leave. Like, they were just off. I mean, they became these characters. I was just sitting back and watching them go. This is I think this was, boom, one of the most effective jump scares in the whole movie. Even though I haven't seen this with an audience yet. I don't know much. It just played at Fright Fest in the UK is where its world premiere was about a week ago, maybe a little more. And I'm leaving tomorrow to go see this for the first time with an audience in the United States at Fantastic Fest in Austin. And I am nervous as fuck. Excited, but there's a lot of anxiety. And I'm so tired. I only got like 3 hours of sleep last night. But we have to do this commentary. Oh, here we go. Just the tip, baby. So, setting up his shirts, there had to be. I love setups and payoffs, of course. And when I wrote this, here we go. Boom. This sets off the climax. All those inserts, I mean, that was me, Steve Delisalo, frequently doubles for Art's hands when he's got to do something really nasty to a prop with a real weapon. And that was Jay Bird, Jason Levy, that was his hand doubling for Charlie's hand, taking a piss. Jason Milstein had to digitally put just the tip on the window in every shot there. Unfortunately, that was such a pain in the ass, but he did a great job. Yeah, there you go. He swipes the dick. I thought of a ton of ridiculous and disturbing things he could do with Jeff's penis after he cut it off, but I said there are lines that I won't cross, and I'd rather just leave it there. The worst I'll have him do is just smear it across the window. Um, but I remember writing this scene and saying, because a lot of people are like, oh, oh, I see what you're doing. You hacked a girl in half last time, and now you're doing that to a guy this time. And like, that's cool. I'm glad that that's sort of at the end of the day what's happening. And yeah, good one for the girls. Fuck yeah. But that wasn't my mindset when I wrote it. I don't. He's an equal opportunist killer, Art the Clown. I don't really look to do things like that purposely. Like I'm purposely going to do that to a woman or vice versa. But I needed to get Jeff out of the car because I needed to separate the two. And I said it's just an organic thing that I wrote. I said, well, he's out there and he's got to take a piss. That's a good way to get him out of the car. And then I said, there he is, as vulnerable as ever, with his dick out, and he's so drunk, he's just looking up at the stars. And I thought if Art could just pop up and just slam a butcher knife into his fucking penis, that would be fantastic. But in typical Art the Clown fashion, he's not just going to stop there. He's just going to keep going and going and going until he just pulls it off. So yeah, just the tip. And then and then I guess we found the shirt later, and it just came full circle. It was perfect. This was cool. We just so happened to be filming there during Halloween, so we didn't have to dress that up. All those pumpkins were there conveniently. And now all this stuff is in the Fright Factory. It's a real haunted house in Philadelphia, run by a wonderful man named Frank, who was, man, he really let us have the run of this place for quite some time. Like everything else in this movie, we all assumed, well, I assumed that it would take 3 days, and it wound up taking 2 weeks. And it's not pleasant in here. You're underground, you're in a warehouse, and of course it's always winter. Whenever we film, it's winter. It's hardly ever summer. Or if it is in the summer, yeah, it's a heat wave and there's no air conditioner, or it's the winter and there's no heat. It's never comfortable. So this is a big moment now. Tensions building. The shit has literally hit the fan, and the shit is literally everywhere. So, like, a lot of people see this in the trailer and they think this is all blood everywhere. This is actually all shit, and this is an actual room in the Fright Factory that we were lucky enough to find, and we just brought it to another level. It already was covered in shit, but then we took Hershey syrup and put it everywhere because I thought this is perfect. This is another one of Art's MOs, is just smearing shit on walls. And now, a couple of setups and payoffs here. So we saw Art building the spiked club, and here it is. And now, at the very beginning of the movie, we saw him pick up this acid, and everybody probably forgot about it. But boom, he hits her with the acid, and Art loves facial mutilation. And poor Brooke. I mean, we put, boom. Oh, poor thing. This was brutal. Brutal. She sells those hits so much. I put little condoms in her face beneath the prosthetic, and I would just blow into little tubes and make them sort of bubble. Yeah, and now, again, Art just being Art and being so relentless, boom, breaks her kneecap off and then just slams the club into her chest over and over. This was another one of those methods where that was a full body replica of Kaylee, and then we digitally put her face onto the dummy just to make it look more realistic. Josh Petrino doing that again. And now Art goes digging, rips her rib cage, spreads her rib cage, pulls her heart out, and bites it. Now, another thing that I didn't get to do that I'm pissed about is we have Brooke smoking the entire time in the movie. And the reason why I did that was I wanted, after Art kills her, I wanted Art to pick up her cigarettes and literally light a cigarette and smoke like he just took and take a drag like he just finished having sex. And I don't know why that never happened. Um, I really don't know why. I think we really just, I don't know, but I'm pissed that it never happened. But that's the only reason why Kaylee smokes in this movie. And so now this has become, I mean, there are literally tattoos, multiple tattoos of Dave by the stall there in that position. When you're filming it, you don't realize which shots are going to really resonate with people, like the sunglasses or Dave leaning against the stall, where people are actually going to get tattoos and love the image. You know, in the moment, you just are saying, "This is fucking miserable. I can't wait to get out of here." Oh my god, it's so stressful. This is where Sienna decides to fight back. It's not even deciding to fight back. This is where her maternal instincts kick in. She is a natural warrior, and especially in regards to saving her younger brother. I mean, she will sacrifice herself for him. And Art really beats the fucking piss out of her. I mean, wanted to establish that she barely has a chance against him at this point. He's so powerful. And I wanted to end it with him slamming her face in the bathroom mirror, and that's an homage to one of my favorite movies of all time, Class of 1984. Originally, this scene was supposed to, we tried to choreograph the hell out of this scene. It was going to be a much more intricate fight scene, and it just was not coming out good. So when I got to the editing room, I really had to just pick the best moments and make it go as fast as possible, and just almost like subliminal images of mayhem that you're getting in that bathroom. But it was supposed to be a little longer. But it's brutal. I mean, he really beats the piss out of her. This scene, I remember shooting this very well. It was just me, George, and Jason Levy on the Steadicam, or the gimbal. It was not a Steadicam. Very, very, very difficult to operate, but it serves as a Steadicam if you need to just track and walk with actors and swing the camera around turns. It's a good tool to use. I don't like doing anything handheld. I don't like shaky cam in my movie. Very rare. Sometimes I'll do shaky cam if it's like a character's POV, but very rare. This was a cool sequence. I like these cat and mouse sort of sequences. We also needed a break in the intense action and violence. A little suspense here, a little calm before the next inevitable storm. Oh man, I love her performance here. She really sells this. Like, you believe that she is fucking, her brain is rattled. That floor was disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. You know, I mean, Jesus. I mean, that is a haunted house that thousands and thousands of people walk through. This is the kind of shit you got to do for your love of art, and not Art the Clown. There's so many people. There's so many wonderful cast and crew members that I worked with on this, and I apologize if I don't get to talk about it. You don't realize this shit moves by so fast, and there's so many things I'm trying to remember and talk about. Michael Levy, it's just like one of my favorite people. Just he was my AD, and made me laugh and really kept me made it comfortable, because this was really stressful, and he has a great way of keeping things light and reassuring you that things are looking really good and keeping morale up. Same with all the Fuzz Boys. I mean, they're a safety blanket. Fuzz Boys, George and Phil, just a giant frat house. More Art the Clown mockery. A big inspiration for the way Art mocks his victims is the hitchhiker from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Just the way that he mocks Franklin after he slices his arm, and the way they mock Sally at the dinner table at the end while she's screaming. That is so disturbing and so effective. boom, this is where she fights. Really fights back and breaking his ribs, slamming him with that. I love this. She slams it into his head and she just stands there. That's so badass. That we had to put Dave on a table for that shot, and then Lauren standing on the table just to get that really low sort of fucking Orson Welles angle. And in order to get that table leg to stick in the back of his head, it's very simple. We just drilled it into a long rod that we taped to Dave's back. It is very simple, but he couldn't move his head or anything while it was there. It was important when we talk about casting Lauren for this role, and aside from being an amazing actress, she's an amazing martial artist. So I knew that was going to be great for the physicality that she was going to have to endure during the climax here. But I never wanted her to be a martial artist in the movie. Like, I never wanted her throwing anything fancy, any fancy punches, anything like that. It's all very grounded in reality. It's very gritty the way Sienna fights back. She's not supposed to be a martial artist. She's just supposed to be tough and resourceful, and she'll uses whatever she can to get her hands on. And she suffers. I mean, she really, really suffers. It's oftentimes not only powerful, but important to have your protagonist suffer emotionally, physically. This is one of my favorite sequences. I think this is the best action sequence between Sienna and Art in the film. It's pretty obvious that he's that character. I wish we put a mask on him, but it doesn't matter. Does it really matter? We spoiled it in the first teaser anyway. But I love this. It's so sort of 1970s Tales from the Crypt, this chapel. And this is all just wonderful stuff in the Fright Factory that we would never have time or money to build ourselves. So we really lucked out. Really grateful that Frank let us film in there. And here he is. It's like it's the Darth Maul Art the Clown shot right there. You expect to see some horns. It's a good reveal. And making its return, the Terrifier 1 flagellum, Art's possibly his favorite weapon. And if you don't remember, it's made from the braids of his previous victims. Boom, now they're just going tit for tat here. This is where he really starts mutilating Sienna's flesh. And she really sacrifices her body. And Lauren did that stunt. Lauren does stunts as well. She's just a quadruple threat. She does so many things. He's just relentless. He's having so much fun doing this. This was one of my favorite scenes that I wrote. Was this moment, should I say, was her shielding her brother, and she's so physically vulnerable. Literally, her armor is just. Ironically, it makes her even more vulnerable. It's symbolic. It serves no practical purpose other than her looking fucking awesome. I knew I wanted this slow motion shot with her feathers falling down for a long time. This is where she's really pissed. And, Dave and Elliot, rightfully so, they had padding on under their costumes. Lauren didn't. Lauren really had to take those shots. And she's a fucking beast. But even though you're using whatever, styrofoam or rubber instruments, it still fucking hurts when you get whipped by something like that. And she definitely got nicked a couple of times. So I know she was really giving it back to Dave here. She's on fire. I love this sequence. This is finally, you feel her wrath. And he's like, oh, fuck. This is a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Just trying to get her to this fucking hole now. Yeah, that was supposed to be more intricate. We built a whole fake head for that thing for that rebar, what the fuck it's called, to go through his head. Didn't work, but the one shot where she pulls it out, it's coming out of the fake head, and then we digitally put his real eyes on it. Boom, it's a big jump scare. I like that one. That one worked. They don't always work. The timing for a jump scare, it's harder than you think. Now Jonathan comes to save his sister. And she's just so... Sienna's so depleted right now, and she's really starting to lose a lot of blood, whereas Art is immortal. The only thing, unbeknownst to everyone at this point, that could take him out is the sword. So he can endure any mortal wound, and he'll get up moments later. But this was cool. This was Elliot had his time to shine and protect his sister. And just fucking rips a hole in Art's chest. There's a great moment back there when she's about to slam the rod into Art's head, and Dave does this wonderful sort of Lon Chaney silent actor look, and I remember telling him that. I said, dude, you don't even realize what you just did. That was wonderful. So wonderful. Elliot brought it here. I like this. This is touching. So touching. And he's got to be absolutely horrified being down there alone with Art. This was something that I wrote later. There was a dream sequence where Sienna wakes up back in her house, and it's still Halloween, and Jonathan's getting dressed for Halloween. He's not dressing up as Art the Clown. She runs downstairs, runs into Barbara, and then Barbara's head winds up falling apart. We just didn't have time to do that, and I said, but I wanted some sort of, not closure, I mean, I guess it is closure, but I wanted her to know that her mother was dead. And I didn't know of a moment or a time to have Jonathan tell her it and just have her break down. So I wanted to do it here in this dream sequence where she's so delirious that she actually believes this is happening. And of course, it's just the pale girl fucking with her. And Jesus, I mean, she is already done. I mean, Sienna's basically done. And then on top of that, to just rub it in her face that her mother's gone. They're really trying to just destroy her on every level before they physically put her to rest. My God, did Lauren deliver the fucking goods here. Take after take. You have no idea how far she took this breakdown. I chose a more subtle take. I mean, she gave me insane breakdowns that were so gut-wrenching. I mean, she was just a fucking dream. And Sienna just kicks back right into protector mode. Just look at how amazing Lauren looks in this fucking costume, by the way. I mean, she is a legit tigress. Like, you feel the fucking power. You feel her wrath. Like, I believe that she could she could wipe the floor with Dave. She definitely could. But you believe she is this character. But at this point, now she's convinced that it's hopeless. And she's desperately just hitting him just out of anger. There's just nothing left. It's just desperation. She's seen him get up now from a shotgun blast. She stabbed him through the head. She knows that believes that there's nothing she can do at this point. Now, even the audience, I don't know, because are you still thinking about the sword? I was hoping you guys forgot about the sword at this point. That was a great stunt. Lauren did all of her stunts except for 2, which was that big fall through the ceiling. I'm sorry, I forget the woman's name, the stunt woman. She was so good. That was a dangerous. It's a lot farther down than you think. And that kind of little shot where you actually see her hit the ground and all the rubble falls on top of her. We're just going deeper and deeper into the abyss. Like literally. Literally at this point, we're going down now. We've gone down another layer. And now we're in what I call the crypt. So this is a dungeon-like environment. And within this environment is this hell portal. So you go in there and you're literally in hell. Your own personal hell. So when Sienna's body is in there, her body's in there. That's it. It's just a grave. But her soul goes to her own personal hell, which is the Clown Cafe, in the Houdini water tank. That all plays into her anxiety. I mean, the whole movie, she's having trouble breathing, so it's to drown for eternity. I really want it to be as if you're in there and there is no moment where she dies. She's literally drowning for eternity. Sienna. That's my voice calling Sienna. I needed more voices. This is... And there's the reveal that he had the sword and he was planning to use it all along to kill Sienna with her own sword. But I needed a moment where you knew that the life left her physical body. So that's why I had her die in the tank and just stop suffering. But if I would have liked to have her, the idea would have been that she's suffering in there for eternity. But it's essential for this character to go through the resurrection. Of course, you could read into all this mythology, and she is a chosen one. She is a savior. There's certainly a Christ-like theme going on with Sienna. But she does not become this divine super being until she is killed and resurrected. And then she's on the same playing field as Art. But she's superior. Dave broke down in that fucking hole. We left. Dave had multiple breakdowns in this environment. But yeah, he was stuck in that hole with tons of powder. And there's hysterical footage of him screaming with his fake teeth in. So if you notice, I mean, because I'm sure some people really don't, because again, this isn't articulated, this isn't expressed through exposition in the movie. I'd rather people just talk about this on their own and come up with their own theories. But when you see her in the tank, you know, some people might think she's actually underwater, but she's not. She's her body is still in the grave. But you'll notice that she doesn't have any boots on. What does this tell you? Yeah, so there's some tentacle. I mean, I wanted some creature that's grabbing onto her that you don't know what it is and how far down it goes. Building that tank, that is more ultimate props to Phil Falcone, who we tried for ages to figure out. Originally, I wanted some cylinder tank that just went to eternity. It had no beginning and no end, but we could not find anything like that. Tanks are extremely expensive. And then once I reconfigured it and made it this Houdini water tank, we were calling aquariums and seeing if people could build that, and it was just astronomical. And then eventually Phil said, you know, I could fucking build this thing. I mean, that's what Phil typically does. Phil does not take no for an answer. And he built that. We had help. His buddy Louie came down. Who's a welder, and they basically figured out how to build this thing, how to make it safe, how it could hold the water, and yeah, a lot harder than you think. Look at her performance in there. Oh my God, it's one of the greatest things that she did. She really went down and acted for probably 40 seconds at a time, and it's tricky. I would have to direct her outside the tank, and then she'd go down and do it. Of course, I couldn't direct her while she was down there. and she had to hit all these specific beats and eye lines, and she killed it. Just fucking killed it. She looks like she's down there suffering forever. By the way, that tank is never in the Clown Cafe. That was shot in Phil's backyard, and then we digitally put it into the Clown Cafe. But this is the moment. So when she goes here, this is where Sienna's gone, and just showing that the stomach is bleeding, that's the wound, that's the kill shot. She's done in the grave up there, and everything starts subsiding. The smoke stops coming out of the grave. It's not as intense. And now the worst thing that Art could do to somebody is eat them alive. That's what he likes to do. That's what he did to Victoria at the end of Terrifier 1. He mimics him screaming. Oh, God. Unbelievable. I can't tell you how fucking miserable it was to film in that room. So here's the reveal. How is Sienna going to get out of this mess? This is where the sword really reveals that it has some sort of power and it could heal her. But like I said earlier, the only reason it can do this is because she can't be killed by her own weapon. So she goes through a more classic, very fantastic resurrection here. And it's even empowering her more. You could tell she's getting all the energy that the divine has to offer. And that's it. And now this is the first time you hear the original Terrifier score kick in, and now it's sort of a war theme for Sienna to come and fucking kick his ass. Like, go get him now. Go get him. Now he's got no fucking chance. And here he is, just eating away at Jonathan. Boom. That shot was so fucking hard to get due to focus. We had to do it so many times. Flailing. If you know, you know. I was so down in the dumps during this shot right here. I was down on the ground here, spitting the blood out of Dave's neck, and everybody was so miserable. This scene went like 3 days longer than it was supposed to, but it was here's where Sienna, boom, as an artist. Sienna's also an artist, and she finally starts painting the walls, and she just doesn't stop. She's relentless. Fucking, she doesn't want him to, just like Art. Art doesn't want it to end when he's killing his victims. Like, Sienna just wants to get as much satisfaction out of this as possible. I love the way she looks here. There was a different energy on set and within Lauren with this sword, in that muddy look. I mean, you felt something different. I remember Phil coming over to me in the hallway and just saying, like, wow, that's Sienna. Like, oh my God, she looks amazing. And it's just some things you just can't explain, but when you see it, it's just magical. But I was really down because everybody was fucking miserable. Everybody was cracking. Really, there were like some little mini breakdowns because this shit gets to you. You're talking months and months and months and hours and hours and hours in the freezing cold, dirty, sticky. And I was just fucking miserable. And I was in between Lauren and Dave, and I remember just turning around and looking up at Lauren, and she was just looking down, smiling at me with the most genuine smile that reminded me of what we were doing and how much fun we should have been having and how we finally made it here and that we just had to get through it and it was going to be worth it. And it was something we were all going to be very proud of, and which we are. So it was it, man. Just sometimes a little smile will really go a long way when you're really down. And now the pale girl makes her presence known again. Also, more subtle things we do with the actual contact lenses. Amelie had two pairs. There's the angry sort of demonic version, and then there's these blue ones, these pale blue ones that she wears often. she picks up his head, and is the head really whispering to her? Is she just pretending? And this was something we did later. I wanted her eyes to glow the way the eyes sort of glow in Salem's Lot. I wanted to go push it a little further with her into the supernatural and bring some VFX in there. This is ironic because here she is. I told Amelie, carry the head away like you're cradling a little baby doll. And I think she did it beautifully. It's perfect. But going into, I'll tell you why it's ironic when we go into the post-credit sequence. And that's another one of my favorite shots is Sienna guarding her brother, still not just like going, all right, let's make Sienna a total badass where she can take on the world. She's still very much this frightened girl who does not know what awaits her next, but she'll never stop. She'll never stop protecting her brother. I mean, and I just love that shot of her shielding her brother with one arm while she's holding the sword up in the other. That was just one of those images that I've had in the script forever. Those little moments that mean the world to me when you see them. They speak volumes. And there you go. They actually, those two characters live, I wouldn't say happily ever after, but I mean, they made it. They made it. This one's about the heroes. This is about the heroes. They vanquished Art. But is he really gone? Is he really gone? Is this story completed? Not even close. I mean, I probably shouldn't have even said half the things I said in this commentary because there's a lot of abstract things going on and they're not spelled out, but you're going to learn a lot more as you go. And there she is, Samantha. Probably one of the most fun people to work with. And when you put that mask on Samantha, she goes through an insane transformation mentally, and she really gets wacky, and it's really fun to be around. And there he is, the one and only Chris Jericho, who everybody knows Chris Jericho is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And he just is a huge supporter of us. And I found out through friends that, hey, Jericho's talking about you on his podcast. He loves Terrifier and Art the Clown, and he's saying the greatest things. And then he met Dave, and then I wound up meeting him, and he said, hey, I would love to be in this movie if you ever have a part. And I specifically wrote this part for him. But now you don't know what the hell is going on here now. All of a sudden, you have Victoria, and you see that she's in this insane asylum, and she's bleeding profusely. Bleeding profusely and writing on the walls in her blood. There's the nice reveal of her face. And now, here's a throwback to All Hallows Eve. She's just writing all these awful things on the wall in her blood. But you don't know what's really going on here. I mean, how crazy is she? The reveal is that she's actually becoming more and more possessed, and she is fully possessed by the Pale Girl at the end of this, as you'll see by her glowing eye. But now she's giving birth to something. She's fucking pregnant. This was something we went back and shot this way, way, way later. Recently, I'd say fairly recently, maybe like 4 months ago, something like that. We just shot this. Not the stuff with Chris Jericho and Leah. That's also Leah, who is the nurse, is the host from the Clown Cafe. It's the same actress. An immaculate conception of sorts, although this would be the unimmaculate conception. Oh, he hated eating those. He did. I mean, he didn't complain, but they were disgusting. They were disgusting. They were just like these rancid yogurt eyeballs that he did not like eating. And of course, I do tons and tons of takes, so he had to keep eating them, and they were starting to get to him. And I said, I better just do one more of these before he fucking tosses me across the room. He's such a good guy. He really put everybody, he put you right at ease, and he's such a huge horror fan, so we could talk about horror movies all day. So, if I could just say this real quick, originally we shot a completely alternate version of this where Victoria is not pregnant. She's in the room singing the song and feeling the back of her head, scratching the back of her head, and she notices there's blood all over her fingers. And then the two of them hear screams coming. They run to the room, open the door. She's spazzing out on the floor, holding her head. Leah inspects her head, and all of a sudden her fingers get bit off. And you don't know what the hell's going on. There's mayhem, and Chris Jericho tackles her, and Victoria reaches up, grabs the back of her scalp, rips her scalp open, and it's Art the Clown growing on the back of her head like a tumor. And of course, a couple of months after we shot it, Malignant came out, and we said, oh my God, we both did the exact same thing, and we can't possibly do that. So we had to go and reconfigure this. Hang on, I'll tell you while the credits are rolling. But yeah, this is amazing. This is the same technique I've been telling you the whole time. Fake head, but Josh Petrino, our VFX guy, just digitally putting Dave's real face on there. And as you see now, Victoria has given birth not to Art the Clown, but just his head, his living head. Where the fuck is it going to go from there? Well, you're going to have to tune into Terrifier 3 because it's wild. And as you see, the eye has turned yellow and it's glowing, so she is possessed by the Pale Girl. So like I said, I had given Amelie that direction to walk out of the room cradling the head like a baby doll, and then we decided to have her give birth to his head. But the credit to that goes to Olga, one of my favorite people on the planet, who was the costume designer, sets, you name it. We all did so many different things, but that was her forte. And I talked to her about everything, every aspect of this movie. And I said, we can't do that scene anymore because I just saw Malignant and it's the same fucking thing. And it's too soon. There's no way people aren't going to compare it. And Malignant, by the way, did it way better than we did it. So she said, well, let's think of other things, the head can come out of, other places it can grow out of. And she literally said, have it come out of her private area. And we were just laughing through text. It was almost just trying to gross out one another. And I said, oh my God, no, that's fucking actually perfect. That's perfect. She'll give birth to him, but not him. She'll just give birth to the head, and it'll be so disturbing. And I just thought of Amelie walking away with the head like a baby, and I said, it's just perfect. It's like it's meant to be. So that scene is totally dedicated to Olga. It is our brain love child, Art's head. I'm sorry, guys. There are so many other things I wanted to talk about, but even though this movie's 2 hours and 18 minutes long, it flew by. So I love you, and tune in for Terrifier 3.